Good afternoon, everyone. I am Utsav Mukherjee. I am the host for this session, Automate It All. And here we have different sessions enriching us about the role of automation in supply chain, in manufacturing, and also how robotic process automation drives the growth. As per this theme, we present you the Fireside chat on innovation to make supply chain resilient and dynamic. And we have Mr. Vineet Agarwal, MD, Transport Corporation of India Limited, President of ASOCHAM, and Mr. Rohit Bhayana, co-founder and managing partner, Lumis Partners. Over to you, Vineet and Rohit.
Thank you, Utsav. Hi, Vineet. Good afternoon.
Hi, thanks, Utsav.
So, Utsav, thanks for getting us all together, and thanks PanIIT and Times. So, pleasure being here. I'm just taking it upon us that Vineet and I will have a kind of a free-flowing exchange of thoughts, and we both are passionate about supply chain. I'll do a quick introduction of myself, and Vineet, I'll hand it over to you, and then we can come back with our conversation. So my name is Rohit Bhayana. Like Utsav said, I'm with Lumis Partners. We are an operating investment firm focused on supply chain. We are also a very deep part of Supply Chain Labs, which works closely with startups in technology in supply chain. And we bring together about 10 companies every year that we invest and partner with in helping them get scale ready. So that's what we do. Vineet and I have been collaborating over a period of time. So it's a pleasure meeting him here. Vineet, over to you.
Thank you, Rohit. So I'm Vineet Agarwal. I manage a company called TCI, Transport Corporation of India. We move about 2.5% of India's GDP by value of cargo every year, and with a bunch of offices across the country, and also present in all modes of transport, including warehousing, e-commerce fulfillment, and other areas. I'm currently also the president of ASOCHAM, which is one of the leading chambers of commerce and industry, which also helps me to be on the National Startup Advisory Board as well. So very exciting stuff that is happening in the startup world in the country today. And Rohit is at the thick of it. So it's a great pleasure to work with him on many ideas and areas.
Thanks, Vineet. I'll provoke this conversation. I'll get it started, and it's always a pleasure poking you with questions and hearing your deep operator and deep leadership insight, given how close you are to it. And then I think the conversation will just build from there. So, Vineet, one of the first things that comes to mind, just building off what you just said, 2.5% of India's GDP. That's mind-numbing. That's a big number. You're therefore seeing it cut across many industries, many sectors, many verticals. Are there parts of the industry where you're seeing the absorption of innovation faster than the others? As you do a radar scan from retail to pharmaceutical to rural India to SMEs to large industrial manufacturing, just give us a state of the union.
Yeah, so just let me switch off my Outlook. Yeah, so I think what's happening across the country is that there has been a lot of disruption to supply chains in the last few months because of the pandemic. And in some cases, supply chains were completely broken because supply side, that is factories, etc., were completely shut. And on the other side, demand was quite badly affected. So the whole mechanism of how logistics was run in the country has been challenged actually in the last year and a half, and not just in India but also globally. So certain industries have picked up on that trend and seeing how they can align themselves better in terms of some permanent changes that have happened. For example, a permanent change would be the move towards omnichannel retail. All of us are buying more online now versus going to the stores or going to the malls, etc. So, but when things open up, we do end up going back to some of these stores. But there is a perceptible shift, as we all know, from the retail moving up to more online online commerce, which means that companies have to change the supply chain. The back end has had to change. The front end has to change. So the multiple channels are now increased, because you're not only supplying to a store, you're supplying to a retailer, you're supplying to your own store perhaps. If you're a consumer durable, you might have your own branded store as well. So these number of channels have increased quite a lot, which means that you need to be a lot more agile. And simultaneously, there are quite a lot of shocks that are quite coming quite often now. If you're seeing that you had the Suez Canal issue, where suddenly global trade literally came to a stop. You have instances of metal prices, or even certain commodity prices like fuel going up, again having a pressure, creating different kinds of pressures on supply chains. And now the semiconductors shortage, which is also creating havoc with multiple industries, not just automotive, but the consumer durable side as well. So this essentially means that supply chains across industries, and virtually barring none, have had to really deal with a lot of changes, a lot of response that has to be agile, and it's been fairly tough also.
Very true. With omnichannel, as you talked about it, I'm just hearing you and I'm just visualizing it. Because of several of these changes, multi-channel, omni-channel, the tectonic shocks that are coming with plan, which basically affect the core of the ability to plan fulfillment. Is that making the boundary between the proverbial B2B and B2C more blurred? Because now a company, irrespective of what its product and offering is, end consumer is always a consumer. And because of whatever is happening in the environment, from COVID to all these shocks to the fact that we're going omni-channel and the desire more and more to touch the consumer directly, is that bringing in a bigger pressure on supply chain, or is that easing out the transparency in supply chain? How are you seeing these shifts in the channels?
We don't think it's really easing out supply chains. I think it's making supply chains more complex right now, because I guess there is the demand for companies. If you're a mobile company, you want to sell online directly to the consumer, because you can get better margins. And if there's no differentiation between your price point between a online retailer like an Amazon or Flipkart, you would want to sell through your online channels, which essentially means that you've opened up another gateway to customers. And so not just B2B, but B2C and now D2C, that is direct to consumer, is also happening quite a lot, which means it is complex. You need to be having inventory at the right time, at the right place, in the right quantity, and that is becoming unpredictable. So many of the e-commerce guys are actually creating smaller warehouses closer to consumers for the high fulfillment products, where there's a high satiation. For example, mobile phones. If you order a mobile phone from an e-commerce retailer, you want that in the next few hours. And when you get that, you have a very high satisfaction level. And so, which means that now you have to have a bunch of warehouses close to the cities, the larger warehouses outside the cities, and maybe some regional centers, etc. So it's definitely getting a lot more complex than simpler. You're on mute, Rohit.
Thanks for pointing out. No, I agree with you, Vineet. So, Vineet, then that kind of takes me to thinking that the way I've seen in my career across the years, there's a front office, there's a mid office, there's a back office. Front office is where you deal with customers, dealers, retailers, your channels. The back office is the functional enablement. The mid office is really supply chain, core operations. And what I saw through the years was front office would always absorb innovation fast because it was all about revenue, market share, and hence agility. The back office would always absorb innovation fast because it was always about cost and productivity. You can take cost out. Mid office, therefore, would be the last to come to innovation. And the justification I would always hear my teams and everyone give was, because resilience is the need. Don't fix what's not broken. That was always the mantra about supply chain. And supply chain became that poor orphan in the middle, which would not embrace, therefore, innovation for very long. Is that changing?
Yeah, it is changing because I think this percolation of innovation, or rather the pressure of innovation from both sides is now too intense. And that pressure will mean that I have to change, or otherwise I would be left behind, or I actually start negatively impacting both either the front office or the back office. And also, we have to see that there are disruptions that are happening, which is eliminating some of these middle offices. Take the example of pharmaceuticals. What is a typical chain of a pharmaceutical? Is that it's manufactured, it goes to a wholesaler, it goes to a distributor, and then it goes to a pharmacist. This chain has been going on for the last possibly 75 years now. And the chain that is now getting broken with all the pharmaceutical, the PharmEasy's, the 1mgs of the world that have come in, directly from the manufacturers going to the warehouse of these companies, or to some of the stores that have gotten converted as dark warehouses, as they call it, and then directly to consumer. So the entire middle section is eliminated. That's why when you go to any of these sites, you see these wonderful discounts, because in reality, all the middlemen is gone. So either that middleman or the middle office changes itself and becomes more dynamic to really offer value-added products and services. Otherwise, they will get eliminated also over time.
Fair point. And amidst all this, how is hyper-local versus long-haul playing out? Do you think players will kind of gravitate towards being one or the other, and technology and innovation therefore will be differently evolved? Or do you see technology and innovation being kind of, cutting across everyone? So do you see a separate set of players coming for the long hauls and separate set of players coming for the hyper? Right now, it's all mixed up. But what's your forecast, long-term forecast?
Yeah, so if you see, there are several aspects of this: the first mile, last mile, and then the middle mile, etc., or the long haul, etc. So on the first mile, last mile, typically the kind of technology that is happening is very distribution oriented, because you're doing a pickup or a distribution to the lowest, to every single pin code level, to a street level, or as they say, उस मंदिर के पीछे में मेरा घर है types, so और so it's like that specific level of detailing, which means that your technology has to become very, very prompt, and it has to be very responsive there. On the middle mile, the idea is, how can I carry more at the lowest cost possible? So what can I optimize over there? However, optimization works across. It's the distribution and optimization problem, which all IITs guys, I think, I'm surely love, is across, because it's a problem statement for every level.
Yeah.
Then the technology in terms of fuel, etc., is going to be quite unique. Our understanding is the first mile, last mile might be electronic EV, or maybe CNG, LNG. And in the middle mile or the long haul, you'll possibly see hydrogen fuel. That's the long-term plan for every government, every organization, because that would not only reduce your carbon emission, but keep up the challenges where you're coming to high output, high throughput from the same fuel sources. So hydrogen will be able to provide that. So this is quite a dynamic scenario now, where the management aspect is going through changes across the distribution framework, but simultaneously the fuel, the technology around the kind of vehicles and all that is also going through a rapid change.
Yeah, I love the way you put it. Actually, you were saying it and I'm framing it in my mind and saying it more for my own convenience and perhaps for the audience as well. So I look at the first mile, last mile, and I see long haul, and then I see engineering innovation, and I see digital innovation. Engineering innovation is EV centric in the first and last, or CNG, and it's The long haul will see more of hydrogen fuels, which, by the way, will be really long haul. We all have to see how long that takes. I think the first mile, last mile will be a quick adopter there on the engineering innovation. On the digital innovation, I think it's going to get to very much geopositioning, a lot of geopositioning coming in the first mile, last mile. Whereas in long haul, we're going to see perhaps more of tracking, load management, package engineering, package optimization, all of that stuff. Would you agree with that, Puneet?
Absolutely. I think you said it brilliantly. But I would also add that certain other infrastructure will need to change simultaneously. Now, think about in the next few years, drone delivery is going to become very common.
You've gone to where I was going to go next. Excellent.
So there, your rooftops of your offices and your warehouses is going to change. They're going to become mini airports. Because you will have drone takeoffs happening from there on a regular basis, on a very frequent basis. So imagine a scenario where the building construction, the building that you live in, actually has a ledge where the drone can come and drop the package. Or actually the drones are where they are originating from the logistics provider. The roof is a complete airport. It means that construction engineering solutions will have to go to that civil level as well. And I would like to just quickly bring in another point that's related to this kind of a change, where we are seeing because of the fact that people are eating out so much, or rather ordering in so much, that there are buildings being built in China without kitchens. Because you have a small microwave at home, or you just order in, or you bring something. So they're reducing the cost of the flats because there's no kitchen. So that's a complete different innovation, engineering issues that are going to start coming up with all these changes.
Indeed. I remember, we were simulating this back in G when I was there. We were simulating a lights out manufacturing beneath. This was the cusp of 3D printing for, the mold getting together, the fabrication thereafter in a lights out manufacturing on a plant which was completely managed by robotic arms, and then drones. And this was a simulation. Drones managing the pickup and the drop. And the pickup and the drop wasn't from the plant to the end customer, but it was even for sub-assemblies. So practically, you had a full non-human simulation from the design with 3D manufacturing, 3D printing, to manufacturing on a lights out plant, to sub-assembly coming together with drones. And at that time, there were no drones going all the way to the consumers because airwaves and spectrums weren't sorted out. And those are still a challenge, but I'm sure they'll get sorted out. Is that far-fetched, or are we not too far away from that?
No, I don't think so. I think I think the pieces of the puzzle are getting put into place now. And some of this, you took the example of GE. GE has this multimodal factory in Pune, which is essentially, it doesn't depend upon a single line of a product. It is any product can be made at any time. So, which means that the kind of tools that you need, whether it's robotics or drones, etc., are also going to be equally flexible. And hence, I don't see this at all as a very far-fetched science fiction. Also people talk about 3D printing, which is an additive manufacturing. There's also something called subtractive manufacturing, which is you take a block of metal or whatever, and then you chisel out whatever you need. And I know, for example, in the logistics business, when we have ships, and if your ship is stranded and you need, let's say, a propeller for the ship, that propeller, by the time it comes from another location, it might take very long. Whereas they will just do subtractive printing and get that propeller made at the local location and fit it. So I know that has started to happen. So it is not very far-fetched.
True. No, fascinating, very fascinating. Vineet, as we go through all of this, now kind of coming to you as not a guy who's looking at the industry and you're looking at a very broad swath of industry. And I'm looking at you as an operator, as a person, as a businessman who's running TCI. How do you see asset owners versus 3PLs, 4PLs play out, and what will their adoption of technology be like?
See, in several industries or several services, actually, specifically, I think you're seeing a lot of outsourcing already. So you don't need to be an operator. You don't need to own all your vehicles to be a taxi operator. Even manufacturing has gone to contract manufacturing. So I think what is happening across the world is there are people who want to invest into assets because they're looking for a certain kind of yield and return. And there are people who want to invest into services. And there are business models that actually cover both as well. So over time, it will be the positioning that you are best at. So let's say I'm a guy who just wants to invest into hardcore assets. Let's say trucks, maybe 1,000 or 5,000 trucks, and I have a great software that manages the efficiency of those trucks. Make sure that when they are repaired at the lowest possible cost, and I'm able to extract the maximum value out of those trucks. And I see that I can deliver theoretically a 20% return. I have seen the operators on the other side might think that no, this asset is not my core. I need to have it, but it's going to generate only a 10% return for me. So ultimately, I would have to take a choice. Where do I want to be? Do I want to be an operator or do I want to be an owner of the asset? There will be, I think, a fewer people who will be in the middle, having
doing both. Mm-hmm. And I think, Vineet, I'm perhaps speculating, but the middle will disappear very quickly. The people who are trying to do both will disappear very quickly, because either you are taking the balance sheet bets and playing on yield, and therefore how you'll track and monitor those assets and sweat their life out is very different versus when you're a service operator and how you're going to do it. And the attempt to trying to do both will basically create, I'm not going to say a conflict of interest, but a fundamental question at you that if you have assets and you're also a service operator, but there's a third-party service operator who can give you a better price, why would you not give it to him? And why would you not choke your internal business to provide it to an external business?
Yeah, absolutely right. Except that the only thing that might happen is that some of those assets an operator might keep for strategic reasons. That's the only perhaps way. And if a company is large enough, they might have two separate balance sheets also, where one could be the asset, one could be the service business.
Yeah, Vineet, as we go to assets, we are seeing both kinds, right? Movable and immovable, from warehouses and distribution centers on one side to, trucks and containers on the other. Tell us a bit about what are you visualizing? How is the landscape going to change on both? First, let's go to the immovable ones first, warehouses, distribution centers. What's the kind of innovation you're really seeing coming in there beyond obviously what we know? Because you're looking at stuff much deeper.
On the innovation side, specifically to, let's say, fulfillment and warehousing is part of that.
Yeah.
One is clearly that asset versus the management has been very clearly identified now, because you have large companies like the Blackstones of the world who've come in and started investing into warehousing assets, and the operating side is very distinct now. And you will see things like in warehousing automation coming in more and more. For example, in China, only just 1 to 2% of warehouses are currently automated. So the kind of work that can happen there is just phenomenal, and not just there, but even in our country. So automation in warehousing is something that's going to be big. Also, there could be distributed warehousing, as I gave the example of a mobile operator, mobile seller who might want to be closer to their customer. But there is also the other side where you'll see very, very large warehouses coming up, which also means that you need to have the kind of evacuation or the kind of logistics management for that facility needs to be thought about very, very sophisticatedly, which could mean a combination of multiple modes of transport for that servicing that particular warehouse. And in terms of technology for even things like building the warehouse, great stuff happening. Almost all warehouses, I know the new ones are having solar roofs. Almost all of them have water conservation. So they're all becoming energy efficient and completely carbon neutral from that perspective. So So changes in the engineering side of warehousing is also very, very robust right now. And new technologies to actually new building materials have also come.
Yeah.
So those have
And
been also.
largely all prefabricated, right? I think it would be a surprise to see anything but prefabricated now.
That's right. Almost everything is prefab. But when you're setting up the flooring, etc., of the warehouses, you need to have a certain quality because it has to be so precise that when you are putting something with a rack that is 6 story high, a little bit of an indentation on the flooring can lead to a shift of the center of gravity, and actually, if you're in a seismic zone, it could actually cause a lot of damage.
Got it. I have one last question for you, Vineet, and perhaps if there's time, we can perhaps squeeze in anything you might want to add beyond that. Vineet, beyond, what are the top limitations beyond technology, which is causing adoption delays from amongst policy, liability, insurance, etc.? What as per you are the top limitations?
See, the biggest limitation is people. The acceptability to change. How fast can you change? Because there is so much technology that's come in, and so many things are changing so rapidly. So I think the resistance to that change has been quite high, I think, in all organizations, because we are forced to do a lot of things by ourselves. And ourselves means, a simple example would be that if in the past, when we had to travel, take a flight, you would get a ticket from someone and you would use that ticket. Now we have to print our own tickets. So we have to do, I'm giving the simplest of examples, something like that, which means that I need to be a little bit more tech savvy than I used to be. So leadership has to drive that specific change with people, adoption of technology, and thinking that almost all businesses are software businesses. So you have to have an understanding about how software is run in the world. I mean, what is happening there? So that would be critical. Policy is always going to be a little behind in terms of where innovation is happening. So that is always a catch-up game. And fortunately, we have a lot of good people in our country that's working on some amazing stuff. We've seen the payment gateway, the UPI Beam. There's a logistics stack that is getting created right now. And there's something called the Open Network Digital Commerce that is also getting set up. So which means that technology is moving quite rapidly. And policy is also moving along with it. You see the new drone policy, for example. So lots of things are happening there, but certainly people challenges are number one.
Excellent. Vineet, thank you so much. What a pleasure as always. Utsav, over to you.
Thanks, Rohit.
Yeah, I think there is one question. Let me ask that. Is that as we see that optimization, the supply chain is growing every day. Do you all two of you, both of you, like, do you foresee any stagnation point for the supply chain where it may not improve? Is there anything?
When you've been talking, I'll go first. So yeah, I think in a way, Utsav, the last question I was asking Vineet kind of was that stagnation coming, and Vineet answered brilliantly well, from human people to policy to perceived management of liability, etc. I think the biggest thing that's happening is digital is converting the whole supply chain into, like I call it, a glass pipe. Everything that moves in is transparent, or it should be transparent if it isn't. And everyone should be able to see it. Everyone should be able to price it. Everyone should be able to mark to market it. And it'll get to be there. I know it's not there, it'll get to be there. But in the process of getting there, since everyone knows it's coming, the kind of pressures it's creating on the infrastructure to get ready for that is really what we have to get past. That so everything that goes into creating a fully transparent glass pipe of a supply chain will create a sustainable supply chain.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Vineet and Rohit, for this a super energizing session, and it made us super charged. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Vineet.
Thanks. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, Vineet. Thanks, Rohit. Very useful.